All right, here's a few news articles that I thought were interesting. This one in particular, some people have been getting real excited about artificial general intelligence, which is, of course, the stuff of science fiction, robots that can actually walk around and think and talk and compete with humans. And some people have been believing that ChatGPT, which technically passes the Turing test, in that it can talk to you and it seems like you're having a conversation with a human, is very close to artificial general intelligence. Most of the real experts say, no, we're far away from that. And Google has pretty much demonstrated that that is true. The fundamental component of the large language models is transformers. And the transformer is an essential element. What it does is it takes English words and it puts them in a high-dimensional space as numbers so that words and phrases with similar meaning are near each other in space. So that is what turns English into mathematics, essentially. And what they showed is that transformers that are trained to do this task can only do exactly what they've been trained to do. And if you try to ask them to do something even a little bit different than what they were trained on, they're no good at it, which is exactly the fundamental issue, the difference between general intelligence and just machine learning. The machine learning is just, in the old days before artificial intelligence, before machine learning, a programmer would program a computer to do something and it could only do that one thing. Like you could program it to play chess and that's it. But the artificial intelligence can learn to do a task without being told exactly step by step what to do. But this shows that the current generation of these models still has that fundamental limitation. All it does is exactly what it has been trained to do. It does not have the ability to generalize and apply intelligence to a new situation, which is one feature of what we would think of as real human intelligence. So that may comfort some people. I think the government going nuts trying to regulate this and everybody jumping on it and everything. A lot of people have wild science fiction exaggerated ideas of what AI can do. And they're thinking of it as far more revolutionary than it really is. It is an opportunity to get jobs and for companies to make money. Just like when social networks came out or when search engines came out and things like that. When the internet came out, it's probably a fair example. Then the internet made a lot of new things possible like social networks, and but it didn't, revolutionize human society so that everything is totally different. AI is going to be like that. All right. So Adobe is selling images of the Israel-Hamas conflict, but they are mostly AI generated. And in fact, not only are they AI generated, but they are probably trained on real photographs taken by paid photographers. So those paid photographers no longer get money from selling their work. So this is very close to a whole lot of lawsuits about artificial intelligence now. There's big lawsuits coming from the producers of videos and images, saying that you train an AI to make images like mine, and the actors said you can train an AI to make a video of an actor saying something without having to really pay the actor to say it. And so that probably seems like a violation of copyright, where you've taken something that belongs to somebody and made a copy of it, although it's changed by the AI. And so there's a huge lawsuit underway. And I'm sure there'll be a whole series of lawsuits about this, whether it is in fact legal to take a bunch of images without paying for them and train an AI to make images based on them and then use those images and sell them for money without paying the original creator anything. This is going through the courts now, and it's going to be a huge amount of money at stake. So I wondered, when first I read this, I thought Meta was somehow preventing advertisers from using putting in ads that were written by AI. And I said, how could they do that? Because it's not easy to detect things written by AI, but that's not what they're doing. Meta has provided AI tools to help advertisers write better ads. They will help you generate images to put in your ad and so on, but they're not going to let you do that if you're in the category of political ads, because I think they wisely realize that misleading, false political ads are a business risk to them. People will get mad about that, whereas if you have an ad for a vacuum cleaner and you use AI to make a prettier picture of a vacuum cleaner, you're probably not going to get sued for that. So it makes sense, but all it means is you would have to use AI tools that were not provided by Meta to spruce up, to make your fake, deep fake video and then put the ad on Meta, and how would they know? So this I thought would be quite relevant. I know I have at least one student that is in fact making this decision right now. The student is thinking of going into a machine learning PhD program, but the alternative would be to start working at a company, a PhD. And this is, I think, a very nice summary of this guy explaining the choice here. A couple generations ago, you'd want to get at least a master's degree, although a PhD was always a losing financial proposition, by the way. I knew that when I got one many decades ago. A PhD is basically turns you into a college teacher, essentially, which is not a path of great wealth. You'd get a lot more money if you just went out in industry and started working and gained industry experience. And now I think that's much more true than it used to be. So he talks about the reasons they're quitting the PhD and who it's for. It was a very good list. If you have ideas, you want to get going right now, you want to implement them practically, then you should probably just be in industry. PhD is more about studying theory and doing long-range research projects to discover whole new things rather than applying anything that's going to happen right now. So anyway, I thought it'd be a useful article for students who may be facing that sort of decision. I think most people are better off going straight to industry. So this is like many times this has happened. They sold people a smart home device, and then they decided to just turn off the features that made it smart. Some of them. A lot of them just make it completely dumb by turning off all the servers. What these guys did was make it no longer interoperate with other apps. But that apparently was one of its original features. As I've read blogs about this years ago where people say, if someone comes to my house to like watch my dog while I'm out of town, they have to know that you have to use an Android app to turn on the lights, and you have to use a iOS app to turn on the heat, and you have to use this special button over here to turn on the other thing, and all the devices in my home use different apps and different controls to where it'll drive you nuts. And so they're integrating platforms, which is like Apple HomeKit and Google Assistant, which would just control all your devices from one platform. But for some reason, the owners of this MyQ garage door opener have decided to ban all unauthorized access, which means all access from these third-party tools, to take you back to where you have to have a special app just for this one device in your home again. It's not clear why they would do this, and the people that bought it feel betrayed. They bought it, and now after you buy it, the manufacturer changes the rules on you so it's less useful. I wonder if you could sue. It seems to me like you could perhaps sue, saying that I bought it, the advertising said it would do this feature. They can't just take that feature away without refunding my money. That might be one response. Anyway, it's quite common that this happens, although the main cases I hear are when the company goes out of business. We'll see if they can do this to you. So this, I used to do this precise work. I used to work at an escrow agency refunding money for people in Federal Trade Commission cases, but usually they got only a small amount of their money back. Somehow, in this case, this is one of these fake tech support schemes where they would somehow trick you into calling a fake tech support. One technique that some people use, I don't know if these guys used, is they would just poison the Google ads. So when you search for like AOL tech support, the top 10 hits are in fact all crooks, not the real one. But anyway, somehow they got people to call them. Then they would trick you into installing something, tell you you had viruses, trick you into installing some remote control device, and paying for some service to maintain your machine that is not worth anything. They would run bogus scans to convince you needed immediate repair, and then convince you to buy a service package for $500 and so on. And they made a pile of money. Somehow the FTC recovered the money, and now they're offering refunds to people. So the average refund amount is $937. So sounds like you can get a lot of your money back, which is good. In most of these cases, by the time the FTC can move in and seize the assets, the crooks have hidden or spent most of it, so you only get like pennies back on the dollar. But it sounds like in this case, you're getting something like a full refund. So that's pretty nice. So 23andMe famously got hacked, or maybe I shouldn't say it that way. The confidential data of 23andMe customers was exposed and stolen. However, what they say is it was through a credential stuffing attack. And a credential stuffing attack is where they go to a public dump of like stolen passwords from other companies, and they see if those users used the same name and password on 23andMe as they used somewhere else, which most people do. They just use the same name and password all over the place, which is a really bad practice, and why everybody should be using a password manager so you can have a separate password at every site. And anyway, they also had a really unfortunate feature at 23andMe where you could look for your genetic relatives. So you could see all the other people that had a genome similar to yours. So even if they got into a relatively small number of accounts, by using that feature, they could multiply it and get in a lot more accounts. And so they stole millions of DNA profiles, which they're selling in offensive and horrible ways online. So anyway, now they're doing what everybody should probably do, is switching to two-factor authentication so that nobody can get in with just your password. That seems to me would greatly diminish the harm from credential stuffing. It seems like a very good idea, and probably many more companies should do the same thing. So we are quietly shipping a whole lot of arms to Taiwan. We are even giving them like grants and loans to buy more arms. And this is notable because it's the first time the United States has ever armed a country that we do not officially recognize as a country. The official position of the United States is that Taiwan is part of China, which is absolutely mainland China's, the Chinese Communist Party's position is that Taiwan is part of China, but unofficially, the United States supports Taiwan's effort to be more democratic and independent than mainland China, and everyone says we're headed for a war with China over this issue, where the U.S. will be on Taiwan's side, and it'll be another proxy, where Taiwan will be the proxy war between U.S. and China, just like Ukraine is the proxy war between the U.S. and Russia. And anyway, we have been now arming Taiwan to prepare for this. So, it's a scary, horrible thing as relations between the U.S. and China get worse and worse, and we move closer and closer to a war between the United States and China. What most people expect is that war will start when China invades Taiwan, which Xi Jinping has been making very clear he intends to do soon. So it's not good. Looks like we're getting involved in an awful lot of messy foreign wars. This looks like one of the next ones to come up. And so here's an article which is quite detailed, charting China's climb as a cyber power. China started hacking all the American companies around 2003 or 2005, but they were really quite primitive about it. One of the things they did is they didn't bother to hide their tracks at all. You could just track the attack straight back to IP addresses of the education institutions next to the military institutions in China. And they talk about how they moved through various steps here. Originally high volume, noisy, wide targeting, mass commercial intellectual property theft, and now they've moved to more subtle, strategic, careful moves. So this basically is they move from a sort of mediocre hacker that's just sort of noisy and clumsy to being a professional military cyber attacker, like us and like the other nations that are leading in the world of cyber military activities, where you carefully engage in activities, sneak in quietly. Anyway, so it's interesting to watch them mature, and this article goes into some detail about it. So that's enough news.